My friend, you are not here by accident. You are the chosen one. The call of the chosen one is not something that begins in the moment you hear it. It is something that has been written long before you were born. To be chosen means that heaven itself has marked you, set you apart, and placed a seal upon your life that cannot be removed by the world. When God calls you His own, He is not speaking of a casual invitation. He is declaring a divine appointment, an eternal assignment, a holy purpose. Many live their lives wandering without direction, but the chosen one is never without meaning. Even in the seasons of silence, even in the valleys of confusion, there is a hand guiding, a voice whispering, a plan unfolding. To be chosen is not always easy, because it means you cannot simply walk the way everyone else walks. While others may live without restraint, you are called to walk carefully, to listen attentively, to obey even when the reason is not yet clear. The chosen one is marked by obedience, not because obedience is always understood, but because obedience is the doorway to destiny. God speaks, and those who are chosen learn to move when He says move, and to stay when He says stay. It is not the strength of your will that makes you chosen, but the strength of His calling upon you. The chosen one carries weight, not the weight of burden, but the weight of responsibility. You know within your spirit that your life is not your own, that your choices are tied to something greater than yourself. Every decision becomes an echo into eternity, every step a testimony of the one who called you. To be chosen is to understand that your protection, your provision, and your purpose are all wrapped up in the one who set you apart. It means you cannot treat your life casually, for heaven does not treat you casually. You are chosen to hear warnings others may ignore, to receive directions others may dismiss, and to walk in a path that others cannot see. That is why the call of the chosen one is both a privilege and a command, both a blessing and a charge. Not every moment of life carries the same weight. There are days that pass by quietly, unnoticed, with no great significance. And then there are days when the atmosphere feels charged, when something unseen is shifting, when heaven places a mark on time itself. These are not ordinary days, they are appointed days, days in which God is speaking with urgency, days that require discernment and attention. When God issues a warning, it is not to instill fear, but to prepare His chosen ones. His voice comes as a whisper to the spirit, as a stirring in the heart, as a sense that what is about to unfold carries more weight than the calendar can show. This Friday carries that kind of urgency. On the surface, it may look like any other day, a time for routine, for plans, for ordinary living. Yet in the spirit, God is declaring that it is a time not to go out carelessly, but to remain under His covering. The chosen one cannot treat this like any other day, because the chosen one has ears to hear the warning of heaven. When God says stay in, He is placing a hedge around you, a wall of protection that is invisible to the eye, but real in the spirit. Ignoring such a warning is not just an act of disobedience. It is stepping outside of divine shelter. The urgency of heaven is a reminder that God sees what we cannot see. While human eyes may only catch the natural, God's eyes discern the spiritual currents that move beneath the surface. He knows what the enemy plots, what dangers lurk, what storms are ready to rise. To dismiss His word is to walk blindly, but to obey is to walk in wisdom. That is why His chosen must always remain sensitive, always listening for the still small voice that separates an ordinary day from an appointed day. A single act of obedience can be the very thing that spares a life, that preserves a destiny, that keeps a soul from harm. When heaven marks a day, it is never without reason. And when God says stay in, it is always because His protection and purpose are waiting within. The night of Passover stands as one of the clearest demonstrations of how God's protection works. The people of Israel were instructed not to fight, not to flee, not to take matters into their own hands, but to remain inside their homes while the angel of death passed through the land of Egypt. They were told to mark their doorposts with the blood of the Lamb, and it was that covering which distinguished them from those who had no protection. What saved them that night was not their strength, not their weapons, not their plans, but their obedience to a simple command: stay inside. That lesson has never lost its power. There are times when the greatest act of faith is not moving forward, but remaining still, not venturing outward, but staying under the shelter that God has ordained. To be under His covering is to recognize that safety is not always found in the obvious places. The streets might look calm, the night might appear quiet, but the unseen realm is often where the real battles are taking place. God, in His mercy, tells His chosen ones to remain where His presence rests. In doing so, He positions them for protection while danger passes by unseen. The blood on the doorposts was more than a mark. It was a sign of covenant, a visible declaration that those within belong to God. That same principle applies today. The chosen one walks under the covenant of the Lamb, sealed not by animal blood, but by the sacrifice of Christ. To remain in His covering is to remain under that covenant, guarded by the one who has already overcome death itself. The act of staying in is not passive. It is an act of alignment. It means you trust that God sees what you cannot, that His warning carries more weight than your plans, and that His shelter is stronger than any place you might choose on your own. The lesson of Passover is that preservation is tied to obedience, and obedience often looks like waiting under the covering until the hand of danger has passed. The adversary never sleeps. Scripture reminds us that the enemy prowls like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Most of the time his movements are hidden, silent, subtle, working beneath the surface in ways that the natural eye cannot detect. While people go about their daily routines, unaware of what is stirring in the unseen realm, the enemy plots traps, distractions, and dangers designed to pull them away from safety and into harm. That is why the chosen one must always remain spiritually alert. The reality of unseen warfare means that life cannot be lived carelessly because forces are at work beyond what can be measured or explained. The advantage of the chosen is that they are not left blind to these movements. God, in His mercy, warns His people. He speaks through His Spirit, through His Word, through the quiet nudges in the heart that say stop, wait, or stay. When He gives such a warning, it is never without purpose. He knows the strategies of the enemy long before they unfold. He sees the ambush before it is set, the storm before it rises, the attack before it strikes. The chosen one is given the gift of foresight, not by natural vision, but by spiritual sensitivity. What looks like a normal day to everyone else may carry hidden dangers in the unseen realm. It is only by heeding the voice of God that the chosen one can walk in safety. To ignore that voice is to walk into traps unprepared, but to obey it is to move in wisdom and protection. The adversary may prowl, but the chosen are never left defenseless. They are guarded by divine warnings, shielded by the presence of God, and preserved through obedience. The enemy's schemes are real, but so is God's covering. For every plot of darkness, there is a word of light. For every unseen danger, there is an unseen hand of protection. That is why sensitivity to God's voice is not optional for the chosen one. It is the very difference between walking blindly into danger or walking securely under the shield of heaven. Obedience has always been the key that unlocks the greater things of God. It is never about rules for the sake of control. It is about trust in the one who sees the beginning from the end. When God speaks and says stay in, it may not always make sense to the natural mind. The day may appear safe, the roads may look clear, and everything around may suggest that going out is harmless. Yet obedience is not about what looks reasonable. It is about believing that God knows more than we do. To follow His instruction even when it defies human logic is to step into a realm of divine covering. Protection is not found in strength, in planning, or in chance, but in alignment with His word. The one who listens and obeys finds themselves spared from battles they never even saw approaching. Many think that delay is a punishment, but in truth, what feels like delay is often preservation. God's command to wait is not meant to hold you back. It is meant to keep you hidden from what could harm you. The chosen one learns that timing is everything, and when God closes a door for a moment, it is only because He is protecting what is behind it. Obedience also transforms perception. What looks like a step backward is often the path toward a greater breakthrough. By staying where he says to stay, you prepare yourself for what he has already prepared for you. The shield of obedience cannot be seen, but its power is undeniable. Time and again in Scripture, those who trusted his word above their own understanding found themselves preserved in the middle of storms and delivered from the hand of the enemy. For the chosen one, obedience is not a burden but a lifeline. It is the assurance that every command of God carries within it a hidden blessing. When he says stay, it is never to deprive, but always to protect and prepare. The simple act of obedience places you in the very center of his will, and that is the only place where true safety and destiny can be found. There are moments when faith is expressed not in movement, but in stillness. The chosen one is set apart to follow a different rhythm, not dictated by the noise of the world or the rush of the crowd, but by the steady whisper of God. When others hurry forward, you may be told to pause. When others chase opportunities, you may be called to wait. This is not weakness, it is strength. It is the strength to trust that God's timing is perfect and that remaining under his covering is safer than stepping out into what looks appealing but is not appointed. Staying still under God's direction is not idleness, it is active obedience. To stay in his presence means to align your heart, your thoughts, and your spirit with his will. It is in stillness that clarity comes, in stillness that revelation is received, in stillness that strength is renewed. When you remain where he has placed you, heaven is at work around you in ways unseen. What looks like inactivity is often preparation. While you wait, God is arranging circumstances, shifting obstacles, and setting the stage for what comes next. The chosen one does not measure life by the pace of others. You understand that destiny is not achieved by rushing, but by walking step by step with the Lord. Sometimes that step is forward, and sometimes that step is none at all. The discipline of stillness trains the heart to rely not on impulse, but on faith. It reminds you that you are under divine protection, that no harm can reach you when you are hidden in his shadow, and that preservation is found in obedience, even when it feels uncomfortable. When the instruction is to stay inside, it is not a loss but a safeguard. By standing still, you are testifying that you trust God more than appearances, more than your own plans, and more than the urgency of the moment. In that posture of surrender, blessing flows. The chosen one discovers that waiting in his presence is never wasted time, for it positions you to walk into the fullness of what he has prepared when the appointed moment arrives.